let's bring down the writer and the director, Patrick Brice. How'd you write this? How long did it take?
Right.
And, you know, all that.
Okay. Well, it took 3 or 4 months to write, and it took longer than it probably should have because, oh, there we go. Because I actually accidentally deleted the script while I was writing it. The first draft of the script I deleted. Just I saved the file wrong or something. It was completely stupid of me, and it was gone. I had written about 70 pages at that point, and then in one fell swoop, it was just gone. And so, you know, I had an outline that I was working from, but thankfully, while that was completely depressing, I wasn't deterred and went back in, and it was nice actually because once I went back in to actually write the final, what became the final script, I was paying much closer attention to what I was writing, and I was saving my work at every chance that I could. But no, I mean, this film was inspired by, you know, I wanted to make a movie. Mark and I were kind of talking about ideas, and I like this sort of subgenre of film of these movies that take place in one night, that like one crazy night. Like we were thinking about Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, you know, movies like that where they kind of, you know, it's this, you're going on this sort of long descent into one evening with these characters, and as an audience you're kind of experiencing what the characters are experiencing from moment to moment. And so I was excited about that, you know, from a writing standpoint. And then, you know, we wanted the film to end in the way that it ends, but we also wanted to justify it getting to that point. And also, I wanted to make a movie about sex that was funny, that reflected sort of my point of view in a way that was, you know, most big sex comedies you see, I don't know, they treat sex from not from like an adult standpoint, I guess. And so I wanted to make something that was reflective of my own sensibility.
A couple of things. I read some interviews with the actors, the male, and so there's prosthetics involved in this film. And I read that there actually is somebody that has to glue the prosthetics on them. You can't do it yourself? How do you get that job?
Well, so yeah, no, those. It's funny because Adam Scott, who plays Alex in the movie, has kind of sent me off on a tour to like let everyone know that those are indeed prosthetics that we used in the film. That is not his real penis. And that was something we had in mind from the beginning of the movie. You know, that was a moment in the film that we knew was going to kind of be a big gag or a big joke, but at the same time we wanted that joke to come from, you know, you hopefully learning more about the characters and learning what they're going through. And so we always wanted to use prosthetics for that moment because we wanted obviously there to be a discrepancy between the two dudes in the movie. And so, yeah, this was our makeup artist who, it's funny because, you know, usually when you have a makeup artist in a film, they do makeup. And our makeup artist was wonderful because she's mostly done horror films actually, so she's really good at doing like blood and guts and stuff like that. And so for our movie, we had her doing just very simple, basic makeup, but then she also had to do the prosthetics in the film. And yes, it was probably a 30 to 45 minute process of gluing them on every day, and the guys were both game for it. And Jason, actually, Schwartzman was quite funny. At one moment, I went in to to discuss a scene with him while he was having it applied, and I walked in, and he's a musician, and he's really, just like always playing music and always playing the guitar, and he was playing. What was he playing? God Only Knows by the Beach Boys on acoustic guitar while his prosthetic was being applied. That was his way of coping with that moment.
How'd you get the cast together? Because they're all very good. And was there a lot of ad-libbing? in this film? Because I sense there's a lot of ad-libbing going on.
Yeah, so the cast came together quite nicely, actually. Mark Duplass and I sort of went out together. Mark has kind of a good reputation with these movies of actually being able to get them made and released, and a lot of his movies play at the Sundance Film Festival, and so it was enough to make folks like Taylor Schilling, who probably has better things to do, or Adam Scott, who has better things to do, actually take pause and read the script that they're being given. These are actors who are quite busy and getting a lot of scripts sent to them. And so it was nice to have them initially connect with the script, and then, once we got to the point of actually making the movie, a big part of my direction was letting them know that this was a place where if they felt like a scene, it felt emotionally right for a scene to go a certain way or to say a line of dialogue that wasn't necessarily in the script, that they were allowed to do that. This wasn't like one of the movies, like a lot of the kind of bigger comedies, they have these scenes where actors are just riffing, and just kind of like making up the dialogue as they go along. And that wasn't this. I mean, we had a full script for the movie, but there is indeed a lot of moments where they would deviate from the script, and you just get great little quips and moments that just added to the authenticity of it. I wanted this movie to have these kind of bigger, broader comedic moments in it, but I also wanted it to be grounded, because at the end of the day, I wanted you to care about the characters. I wanted it to be funny, but I also hopefully didn't want the characters to seem annoying or like you just didn't believe or trust what they were going through at the end of the day.
You opened at Sundance, right? The Sundance Festival. But today, the movie's going wide. How many theaters are you in today?
So today, the movie comes out in 300 theaters, which is a big deal. These independent movies don't necessarily, it's a big deal for them to even be released on video on demand or come out through Netflix or iTunes, but the fact that the company that bought us was willing to put it out on screens is a huge deal, and it's exceeded our expectations in terms of where the film is going to be shown.
At the end of the film, my impression is they're not going to see each other again. Is that how you feel? That's how it ended? Is that film that we just watched, is that the film you wanted to make? Did it come out just the way you wanted?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I wanted to leave it somewhat ambiguous as to whether they would see each other again. I wanted that last moment in the park to feel kind of...
I think I'm lying.
Excellent. I wanted that moment at the park to I wanted it to feel awkward. I wanted it to feel as real as that could be, of these guys who had gone through this experience together and then actually see each other again, But at the same time, I was really, I wanted to make a movie about this subject that didn't involve judging me as a filmmaker judging the characters or forcing the audience to judge the characters. I wanted it to be something where you're seeing these people have this experience, and then it's kind of left up to you to decide how you feel about it. And yeah, this is the movie I wanted to make for sure. There's a few moments in this film that are sort of the first kind of epiphanies that I had as a writer, where I know it's totally ridiculous, but the moment where the guys have their dance by the pool, that was actually the first moment as a writer where I was seeing articulated exactly what I had written in the script. This is what I wanted,
How come, and then we'll take questions from the audience, how come the wife that was the uptight wife was okay with her husband kissing a man? And she seemed fine with that.
Yeah, well, that was I was hoping. There's this kind of almost cliche in these movies, especially nowadays, where they have the man-child guy that's having all the fun, and then it's his wife that's the one that's saying, "Oh no, you shouldn't do that or shouldn't do this." And so I was well aware of that sort of archetype going into it, and I had a lot of conversations with Taylor before we made the movie of I didn't want this character to be that. I wanted her to exist somewhere in this space where, like what happens at the end of this movie is what happens as a result of this night, and as a result of all these people revealing these sort of deep feelings that they're having and deep insecurities that they're having. And I liked the idea of not only those insecurities being revealed, but those insecurities being met with compassion and empathy at the end of the day, you know. And I thought that it could still be funny and have the characters interact in that way, you know.
Okay. Does anybody have a question? This is my Phil's audience.
Hi, great film. My name's Kurt too, so I get easily identified.
Oh man, hey Kurt.
The movie's basically about free love, and we were talking here that this might have been filmed in San Francisco in the hippie days where everybody was doing everything. Did you put it as a contemporary piece that love never changes or things like that? I mean, did you ever think about it as a period piece?
You know, I didn't think about it as a period. I mean, you know, a lot of this film's getting compared to Bob Carroll, Ted and Alice in a lot of ways, and that is a film that was on my mind as I was writing it. I hadn't watched it. Actually, I only rewatched it since I made this movie, and that's a film that, you know, there's a lot going on in that movie outside of just what's going on with the characters. You know, it's like a lot of it has to do with what was going on politically and culturally at the time, and with this film, I really wanted to. I didn't want to make some grandiose statement about our culture. Like I wanted it to be really focused about what these particular characters are going through. And at the end of the day, like if it presents a model for acceptance or self-acceptance going through this type of thing, then that's great. Like if that seeps through, then that's wonderful. And you know, I don't know. I wanted to present this stuff in a way that hopefully, I don't know, just like took shame out of the equation, I guess, and said, you know, it's okay if you have these feelings at any given time, and hopefully you'll be able to talk about it with your loved one. Like hopefully that will be a real conversation. Thank you.
4 real quick questions here. What was your total budget? Did you use more than one camera at the same time? It seemed as though you did on a couple of occasions. How did you convince Adam Carolla to give up his house as the set? And finally, with Stan Winston, the famous makeup guy, dead, where do you find a guy to make a plastic penis or two?
Oh man. No, I have his phone number in my phone. I can give it to you if you want. Goodness gracious. The first question, I mean, it's kind of, sorry, it's like, I can't tell you exactly what our budget was, but it was under $1 million. You know, which is nothing when it comes to making a movie like this. And we shot it in 12 days and in 10 nights because of that, which is kind of an insane schedule to have with a movie like this. We were really, you know, once we felt like we had a scene right, like felt somewhat confident about it, we would have to move on. You know, we were shooting 7 to 10 pages of script a night, and we did shoot it with 2 cameras, and I think you couldn't make a movie this quickly if you weren't shooting with 2 cameras at the same time, getting coverage, so you end up having a lot of options to work with that way. And it was my first time ever shooting with 2 cameras at the same time, so it was nice to be able to have that to work, you know, construct a scene. And then what was your third question?
Adam Carolla.
Adam Carolla. So Naomi Scott, who's Adam Scott's wife, Adam Scott from Parks and Recreation, used to work for Jimmy Kimmel and Adam Carolla. She was their producer on The Man Show way back in the day when they were doing The Man Show. And they're actually neighbors, coincidentally. So we ended up shooting this movie, I think 3 blocks from where Adam and Naomi live. And Adam had just moved out of his house, and he lives in La Cañada now, and he had this amazing house in Lake Hollywood that had all these strange nooks and crannies in, as well as a giant room that we could use as our production studio, essentially. And it was great, because we'd looked at like 20 houses before then, and none of them really quite worked or were big enough. And so it was nice to have this giant house that we could go to and kind of play in the middle of the night. And then, what was the last question? Sorry.
Where do you get a plastic penis?
Oh, where do you get a plastic penis? So, if you
Palm
want...
Springs.
Yeah. Well, maybe we had there's a guy named Matt Mungle, and he's a prosthetician, I guess. But he did. I mean, the company that he works for does a lot of the like big Hollywood movies. Like they did The Butler. I don't know if you guys remember the prosthetic penises in The Butler, but there weren't any. But he does, he does like heavy FX makeup and severed limbs and all kinds of crazy stuff. And he was great because we went to him and said, look, we have no money, but we think that this movie, this could be a cool opportunity for you. And he took us on. There's actually, I think in this week's issue of Newsweek magazine, there's a interview with him and an article about Matt, who did our buddies up there.
What did you learn from this process? Because it's the first movie, you used 2 cameras. This is a big jump. So what did you learn? And what mistakes did you make, and what won't you do the next time?
I mean, it's funny because when you're making a movie that you've written, it's almost like you're dealing with 2 different versions of yourself. Like there's Patrick, who wrote this script, who didn't have a care in the world, that was just sitting alone at home making all this up as he went along. And then there's Patrick, the director, that was having to deal with all the problems that Patrick, the writer, set up for himself. And so it's that you like disassociate or something at that point. And so I learned a lot about going back into the writing process in terms of setting myself up for situations where I could actually pull them off once we got on set. But it was great. It was really I was really lucky to find both a crew and actors that got the material, got the tone that I was trying to go for, and were willing to stay up all night and get completely exhausted for 2 weeks making this movie. It was a convergence of a lot of great people working together.
So do you still want to write and direct?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but
For
you
sure.
want to write your own material and direct your own material?
Yeah, I'm also open to other script. Like, if I find a script that I respond to and that I feel like I could, bring something to the table on, I would definitely direct it. But, one thing I learned about making this movie and sort of the freedom that you get from writing your own material is that it's a rare thing, and a special thing. And it's hard though. It's hard to go back into the process of writing. Writing is very intense and difficult.
Totally.
You're kind of wrestling with yourself essentially, and starting with a blank page. There's nothing scarier than starting with a blank page,
We've got a question over here.
I don't need a microphone. This is a non-penile question.
It's a non-penile question. They have to hear you.
I hate to have a non-genital question.
Oh, I love it. I welcome it.
They're not questions, they're just observations. Thank you for honoring us to be here on the night that your film goes to 300 theaters. We appreciate that.
Thank you guys so much.
Anywhere but you're here. Thank you. And also, I think you've written one of the great lines that may add to the lexicon. Adam says something to the effect that I think I gave birth to myself tonight. That's some great stuff, man. So great writing.
Thank you, man. Really appreciate that.
Anybody else have a question?
I was just curious, how long was post-production and what was the editing process like?
So my editor is actually one of my best friends since I was 18 years old. He was one of my best buddies who's an editor. He edited this other film, Creep, that I made with Mark Duplass. And so it was, it was just a completely fluid process being able to edit with him. And we shot this film in April of last year. We had to complete it for the deadline to submit to Sundance, which was, I think, August. The late deadline is September. And so we spent probably 4 months editing it. And then we had 2 or 3 sessions where we would show it to fellow filmmakers and get notes and then go back in and do some adjustments to it. But there was really only 2 or 3 sessions where because we shot it so quickly and because we only had so much time to make it, our shooting ratio for this film is like 2 to 1. Like normally with a film you can kind of do take after take after take on one scene or one moment. And with this movie, we really only had 2 or 3 takes for each scene before we got it right. And that was, that's, I think, a huge testament to the actors. I really have to give it up to them for just being completely focused and able to deliver under that time frame.
Well, it was a really great movie. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
The one thing I kind of watched it, I kind of worry about is you're in a very busy weekend here with big movies coming out. This is a big weekend. Can you just kind of talk about having your first movie in such a busy weekend? And then I got another follow-up if I can remember it.
Yeah. No, so our initial release was 2 weeks ago, actually, in New York and Los Angeles. And I think the distributor that put the movie out was really smart, having the initial release be just in New York and LA. Because of that, how they sort of gauge how well a film is doing these days, especially if it's a smaller film, is how much money a film makes per screen. And what was really great about that first weekend is we actually were the 3rd highest per screen average in the country. So it was Inside Out, Jurassic World, and then us. So, according to industry standard and what the with how the trades, in terms of within the industry, we were the 3rd best film that weekend. In terms of actually getting butts in the seats in the theaters that we were in. So, in that sense, it's already been great. Like it sort of put our distributor's a new distributor. They're called The Orchard. And so it's kind of put them on the map in a great way. And then our second weekend, it wasn't a giant weekend, but we were able to keep the screens that we had. Like they were making enough money that we didn't get dropped from any of the screens. And then this weekend is just, they only went out in 300 screens. Normally when a film is released wide, it's like 3,000 screens or 2,500 screens. And they were really smart to just kind of go to each city and say, okay, what's the screen that this film is most likely to do well on? And for Palm Springs, it was this cinema here. For the most part, it's like art, the art house cinema that's in each individual city. And so, I think it's smart, and I think this is a movie that also is going to probably do much better on video on demand. Also than in the theater. It's a movie that, it's got these recognizable actors from television. It's 80 minutes long. It's easy enough to just click on when you're watching it at home. So this release, while it's nice and I feel very, grateful that it's happened, it's also just kind of exists as a way to develop word of mouth for the movie, essentially. I think that's the main goal.
Well, when I get Smash and Mike, you should tell them to let people know that you guys deliver.
I know, yeah.
The follow-up question I have for you is, for your next project, this was a small project. For your next project, are you looking to try to do maybe a bigger film? And have you thought about the challenge that will await you when you start doing bigger pictures?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm completely open and excited about the idea of doing a film with a bigger budget. I think that's the goal, essentially. One of the things that I've learned making a movie like Creep, which was my first movie, which we made for maybe, I think, our budget while we were making it was like $10,000. We made it for no money. And then this movie, having a little bit more money, is you really become aware of all the new tools that are available to you. And it's great because with each of these new tools, I feel like I'm able to use them much more deliberately because I know that they exist, because they didn't exist on the last one. And it's like all of a sudden there's someone here to help me with lighting the movie, or even having a cinematographer, which I didn't have on my first movie. So all of a sudden I have these new people to bring into the fold and collaborate with. So I'm excited about the idea of making something bigger, for sure.
I have a 2-part question. As a fairly new filmmaker, do you read all the reviews, and do they affect you? And also, is this movie going to open doors for you now?
Yeah, well, it's already opened doors. This is a movie that, while it's really small budget-wise compared to other movies being made in Hollywood, because of Sundance, a lot of industry people watch movies at Sundance, and then because of the actors who are quite recognizable. You know, it exists in a way that industry people can watch this and say, oh, maybe he could direct another big comedy, or, you know, so I am getting scripts sent to me and stuff like that, and that's been really fun and kind of overwhelming, I guess, because you get really excited, you know, with these opportunities, but then maybe you read the script and you know, your intuition is telling you it's not you, you know, it's not you at the end of the day, it's not what you want to be putting out. So, you know, I'm having to kind of balance that right now and remember to be true to myself, I guess, with that stuff coming my way. And what was the first question?
Or do you read the reviews?
Oh yeah, no, I read every single review. I'm, you know, I'd like to say I don't, but I'm pretty obsessive compulsive in general, and so you know, I need everything on my desk needs to be perfectly aligned before I can start writing, and then, you know, yeah, I mean, because it's such a ridiculous thing to make something and put it out in the world and then have all these, you know, reactions to it.
Well, do they affect you though? If you read a negative review, do you get depressed or upset?
No, I don't know. Maybe at first, I guess, you know, during Sundance when the first response to the movie came out, and there was a lot of great reviews, but there was a couple bad ones, of course, you know, as it happens, and that was a bummer. But at the end of the day, you know, you read these reviews and I mean, I feel bad if anyone paid for the movie and didn't like it. You know, like at the end of the day, like my goal is to make a film that's entertaining and to make a film that people are getting their money's worth, because it's just so hard to get people out to the movie theater nowadays, you know. And so I am thinking about that for sure while I'm making a movie. Okay. While I'm thinking of a movie, is that like I want to make something that's hopefully entertaining from moment to moment. But then, you know, at the end of the day, also, when you read these reviews, it's like, and that's also, once I started to make film and actually make movies and actually start a project that takes 2 years to finish or 3 years to finish, I become much less critical of myself and much more sort of empathetic towards the people actually making the work. And so at the end of the day, maybe if I read a review that says the movie was lazy or says that, you know, what's cool about this movie is we haven't really gotten any all-out, you know, we haven't really gotten like bad reviews, like this is a terrible movie. We've gotten reviews that like you tried to do something and you didn't quite get it, or we got reviews that are like, this is something new and awesome. And so I'd rather have that, I guess, at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, I feel bad if somebody says my radio show sucks and it's free.
Yeah.
So screw them. Anybody else have a question?
Yeah, just one more. I'm familiar with the two male leads quite well. I don't know the female leads that well. What's the story on the two female leads? I don't know them.
Yeah. So Taylor Schilling, who played Adam Scott's wife, she's the lead on Orange is the New Black, that's on Netflix right now. She's been in a few movies, but hasn't really. She was in a Nicholas Sparks adaptation called The Lucky One, and she was in the adaptation of Atlas Shrugged Part 1. She's been in a couple of films that have kind of bombed, you know, and then Orange is the New Black has really been the catalyst for her career and has been really huge for her. And so this is actually the first film that she's been in since she's sort of blown up with that show, and so we were really excited to get her for it. And I just think she's a fabulous actress, just extremely smart and intuitive. And then Judith Godrèche is, she's quite well known in France. She's a big actress in like French comedies that are made for the French market. She's been in a few films that have been released here. There was a film called Ridicule that was released on from Miramax in the 90s. There was another film called L'Auberge Espagnole. And then she played Leonardo DiCaprio's love interest in The Man in the Iron Mask. So there's been a couple things that she's been in for an English market, but for the most part, this is probably her biggest, or biggest role in an American film.
Okay. Patrick, I think you're on your way. This is a really good start.
Thank you.
Any parting words you want to leave us with?
No, I just really, it's a big deal to come out to the movies, and I really appreciate you guys coming out tonight. So thank you from the bottom.